Okay, getting into individual attributes now. You may have noticed that we talked about layers when we were talking about view settings. And that's because layers are layer combinations. And layers are both a view setting and an attribute. The idea there, and this sort of sets up the basis for what an attribute is that the layers are assigned to individual elements, model and drafting elements in ArchiCAD. The layer combinations are the view setting. Similarly, pen sets are both an attribute and a view setting. The pen set is assigned to the view, whereas individual pens are assigned to the elements. So just to give you a rundown of our basic pen set here, looking at the element level, for example, of these things. So these structural beams, rafters, etc., using the structural pens here, that's what makes them red. And this pen set, as opposed to, if I go to the documents pen set, they're black. So that's the logic of how they work for the view settings. And how they're working as an attribute here, I'll just give you the rundown on individual pen groupings. For the most part, they're all these groups of 3. And looking at these as a millimeter pen weight, they're all 0.05, 0.15, and 0.3 millimeter pens. The green pens are for doors, windows, and skylights openings. These mauve pens right here are for casework or anything built in, trim work, millwork, things of that nature. The lavender pens are anything not fixed to the building or furniture parts, appliance parts, decorative pieces, things of that nature. These pens are the landscape pens. That includes placeholder trees for replacement in Twinmotion, as well as softscape and grass areas, or anything that we're designating as sort of landscape scope in ArchiCAD. These gold colored pens here are for mechanical, that's ductwork, as well as registers and any mechanical equipment. These pens are, the blue pens here are plumbing fixtures, and that often includes plumbing accessories, things like towel bars and things like rope hooks and whatever else. These yellow pens right here are electrical, switches, light fixtures, outlets. The red pens are, like I said, structural, and that is any structural steel or primary beams or columns. The brownish pens here, those are civil. I use those for all site models, roadways, driveways, sidewalks. The chartreuse pens here, I've got those labeled vertical circulation in our pen sets. Those are for stairs, railings, handrails, guardrails, elevators, dumbwaiters, anything sort of vertical or fall protection related. The pens right here, I'm skipping over these. I'll get back to those in just a minute. These are for our composite management. These pens are our drafting pens. We use those to draft polylines to give depth to the building on exterior elevations. We use them to draft all of our details, things of that nature. These are the fill pens. So these are all 0.02 millimeter, pretty thin line weights, but they're basically for surface fills, drafting fills, the foreground pattern of various fills. As an example, if I take a fill pattern, and let's just do 2 of them here side by side, and we'll set this to maybe something like a 24-inch grid. Let's give it a white background so we can actually see that. Versus this one right here, maybe it's a little bit more dense fill, something like this shingle pattern. The white fill, or sorry, the fill pens are used based on which pen is selected is based on the density of the pattern. So on this pattern, for example, it's relatively dense, so I might pick one of the lighter pens because if I show that with the dark bold pen and that's a pattern on my elevation, it really pops more than I probably want it to. So I can go with a little bit lighter pen on that, pen color on that. The more bold pen, I can use a little bit darker pattern so that it doesn't kind of fade out like that. So really that's the idea behind which pens get used for which fills. Um, and while I'm on this, looking at the groupings of pens here, these are pens that Sandrine in particular chose these RGB codes for her InDesign presentation plans. So these match what Sandrine has set up in a template in InDesign. These pens are just sort of a general survey of pens for presentation plans. So if you have like a tile pattern, for example, you can set that to a gray pattern for your presentation plan, or if this is going to be a siding pattern or something like that, you could use one of the brown pens. Sorry, that's intended to be a background color there. Let's do that one right there. So you can use these for presentation plans. Now, the advantage to those is in our document set, or even our presentation set, we're going to see those, and then our document set, those pens turn white. So we don't have to go back and switch things around from presentation to documents. That's the idea behind those pens in particular. The drafting pens are going to show all things color no matter what. These pens right here all have special purpose, essentially. The white pen here is an always white in a lot of ArchiCAD scripting and out-of-the-box parts. This is what I call the white sweep pen. That pen gets used, let me go to, do I have a layout tab up here? No, I don't. Let me pull up a layout here. Building sections, this will do fine. So this gets used for interior elevations and things where maybe we have the boundary of the drawing frame falls right on an element that we don't want to show in the drawing. Even if that thing is being masked out by fill on the interior elevation, it may bleed through. There's kind of a weird flicker thing happens when this drawing frame hits that edge. So to alleviate that, we have what I've called the white sweep pen, where we can add a printable border, set that to 0, and use that pen 92. And it's a 1 millimeter thick white line that will mask out anything on that edge. Obviously, like, we're not drawing right to the edge of that frame because it is 0.5 millimeter into that drawing. Okay, coming back to the floor plan here, let me go over to this area right here. So now we can see what's going on with our composites. And if we look at, let me finish up with these pens. So the green pen here, this is, it's called the landscape pen. It's a little bit antiquated. We used to use this when we would bring in SketchUp parts, and all the polygons of the SketchUp elements would show through in ArchiCAD, and it would be really distracting. Since we're using Twinmotion now, that's less useful, but it is an always green pen. And this is the Walker Warner logo pen. Down here at the bottom, these are the annotation pens. So the heaviest one is used for tick marks, and that's a 0.15 millimeter, I believe. And then we have like lines and leaders, text, and then there's just a miscellaneous light pen weight here as pen 183. So now the groupings here. So these pens 21 through 24, as well as pen 41. So looking at the functions of these pens, pen 24 of any framed or non-concrete composite is going to be the bold cut line of the core. I realize that a lot of graphic standards say the outermost line of an element is the bold line. We did some tests, and this graphically prints better out of ArchiCAD. The outermost line of the composite is going to use pen 23, and that's that 0.15 millimeter. So core line is 0.3, outer line is 0.14. Pen 22 is the fill pen, the fill background pen, I believe, for the core, for that wood framing building material. This pen 21 is used for the foreground pen and the skin separator pen between the non-core elements of a framed composite. And then this is the foreground pen of, the background pen, I believe, of those elements. And I'll show you what that does here in just a second. But these pens right here, so sort of same Tetris piece looking thing, these are for the same function, same pen weights, just for concrete composites. The reason we have that is so that in our documents pen set, the fill of a concrete composite shows up sort of with this dark gray, or medium gray, and then the framed elements show with this light gray. Now to show the difference between these three pens right here, this one, pen 21, 22, and 41. Let me just switch to this pen set, and you can see that composite. This is how it's going to print out. If I look at it with the detail pen set, that's where we start seeing at like 1-inch details. If I were to copy content from a section or a plan into a detailed viewpoint, I'm going to get those fills automatically drafted out because those pen sets are showing with the pattern right here. So that's it for pens and pen sets, fills, pen sets and layers.